UFC Fight Night, Derrick Lewis versus Tallison Teixeira just finished, and I'm going to recap the entire card, starting with the prelims, ending with the main event. And guys, this whole card was an absolute banger. There were 4 finishes on the prelims. There were a bunch of finishes on the main card. This might have been one of the best, or at least the most fun fight cards in the whole year. So let's get started. Starting the night, we had Fatima Kline versus Melissa Martinez, and that was a pretty good fight to open the card, especially for a women's fight, man. It was interesting. It seemed like people thought that Melissa Martinez had the better striking, but it definitely did not look that way. She was getting walked down from the moment the fight started. Fatima Kline was just like keeping her at range, using her kicks, keeping her against the fence the whole time. The first round, Melissa Martinez basically got no strikes off. And then in the second round, she came out trying to throw some stuff to get respect, but it just seemed like she couldn't land. Everything was just like coming up a bit short. And did a bit more in that round. It was pretty close, but I think you would still say it went to Fatima Kline. It just seemed like she was bullying Martinez like the whole time. It just really seemed like she was putting that pressure on, bullying her. Definitely seemed like the more focused fighter and came in with like a really solid game plan. And then in the final round, Melissa Martinez comes out, actually throwing some heavy stuff. Fatima Kline is also throwing a bit heavier. Things definitely heated up. It seemed like Melissa Martinez knew that she really needed to do something to win the fight. And then out of nowhere, Fatima Kline just throws this massive head kick. She goes like jab, left hand to the like feints the left hand straight and then throws the high kick up, sort of Leon Edwards Kamaru Usman style, but without the full two coming out. Smashes her with the head kick, like literally her face did the whole Yoel Romero like thing, and then goes to the ground, lands about 4 or 5 more shots, and the referee stops it. Really setting up all those leg kicks and knees in the first and second round paid off for Fatima Kline when she ended up throwing that big head kick. Moving on to Mike Davis versus Mitch Ramirez. This one was another fun fight. Mike Davis comes out with a lot of pressure really early, takes Mitch Ramirez down, they scramble, get back up. Mike Davis picks him up again, slams him on his head pretty much, like it was like on the face-ish, but pretty much on the head. Gets his back and looks like he's going to tap him out with a rear naked choke in literally less than a minute. Mitch Ramirez is able to fight off the lock hand and then fight off the choke hand eventually, and starts throwing up the shakas to the camera with a big grin, starts punching Mike Davis in the head from, while he's on his back, and looking super confident, even though you still haven't got the guy off your back yet. And that was literally the rest of the round, was Mike Davis on Mitch Ramirez's back, just throwing up choke attempt after choke attempt after choke attempt. The commentators said that it was 8 submission attempts in the round. I don't know exactly where they count one stopping and the other starting when the lock comes off, but it was pretty crazy. It looked like it was going to get finished multiple times. There was one moment right at the end of the first round where Mitch Ramirez sort of gets to his knees and Mike Davis is on his back and he throws Mike Davis into his own head. And then the round ends. Another interesting thing is that Charlie Arnold, the taller, thinner version of Megan O'Leary, was saying prior to the fight that Mike Davis had never lifted weights before or never tried to bodybuild. I don't know, bodybuild wasn't the term that she used, but had never tried to put on muscle. But because he got out-muscled in his last fight, he decided to add on 10 pounds of muscle to this fight. It seemed crazy that he hadn't lifted like that before because he had pretty solid muscle mass on him. Did not seem like his first time lifting, but I don't know exactly what that means. Anyway, comes out in the second round and Mitch Ramirez starts lighting Mike Davis up with strikes. Mike Davis is looking way slower than he was, and there's no wrestling happening whatsoever, and they're basically just slugging, hitting each other, taking about 5 to 10 seconds rest, and then the same thing happens, and that just keeps going for a few minutes. Neither guy has a good solid guard or any type of head movement. They're just eating shots over and over and over again. And then with about a minute left in the round, Mike Davis just throws this massive flying knee, catches Mitch Ramirez right up against the cage, and then follows up with a bunch more punches, overwhelms him, puts him to the ground, and the referee ends it. But fun fight, man. This is a fun start to the card. Moving on to Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Valter Walker. Valter Walker's actually Johnny Walker's brother, funnily enough. And he's crazy just like Johnny Walker. This was the battle of the giants. Kennedy Nzechukwu 6'5", Valter Walker's 6'6", and starts the round. This is a quick one, by the way, guys. Nzechukwu is looking super confident, has his hands down, looks like he's ready to throw some damage. Valter Walker just starts zombie rushing him, like literally old school UFC 1 trying to get the takedown, but like he's throwing punches. I thought it was gonna almost go the like Stipe Miocic versus Fabricio Verdum, like just hook punch and catch him on his way in, but Valter Walker gets Nzechukwu up against the fence, drops for a takedown, sort of gets the takedown, he's on his knees and he's doing the whole like Khabib chain wrestling style, just like following him along the cage, continuing to grapple with him. And then when he has Nzechukwu's like back, like he's got his back, they're both on their like, they're stood up against the cage. Valter Walker just drops down to his back, locks up a heel hook immediately, and starts getting the tap like that. Like within a minute, fight over, has the tap. That is Valter Walker's third fucking heel hook in a row. It's insane. I don't know what you do with this guy. He's just going to continue heel hooking all of these fucking heavyweights. It'd be interesting to see if he can get it because his striking does not look good. So I think if he gets up there against the higher level competition, they're going to be able to keep him at bay enough. But this was a fun one. This is so far like the best prelims of any card this year. Seriously, like 3 finishes in a row, one of them being a women's fight. We got a head kick, a flying knee, and then a fucking heel hook. Let's go. Moving on to Eduarda Moura versus Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy looked super fired up for this fight. It was her last fight ever, so she came out doing the whole Anthony Smith, really soaking up the moment. And she came into the first round very aggressive. She like rushed for a takedown and sort of bowled Moura over, but I think overshot it. And then Moura was able to basically slip out. Moura then ends up getting her own takedown, is landing some decent strikes, and Lauren Murphy goes to like push her off with her feet, and it looked like she landed an illegal upkick, but the ref was like, nope, it was a push, so that was interesting. Honestly, first round probably went to Moura, not too much to discuss there. Round 2, and Moura comes out, is landing more, getting way bigger reactions off of Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy's not really landing anything because she's just like too short. Moura can see it coming from a mile away. Honestly, this fight just showed that Lauren Murphy is too old and too slow and definitely needs to be retiring. Also, I felt like we need to get some of those Kiwi girls from Dan Hooker's bike shop fights that were happening. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. They do like these minute fights and these Kiwi girls just go insane, like beating the shit out of each other. We need more of that in the UFC because honestly, this fight was like pretty slow. Also, the commentators are fucking dreadful to listen to sometimes. Like DC and Laura Sanko and everyone talking about how like Murphy's going to outlast Moura in this like 3-round fight that Moura's winning 2 rounds of, and it's not like Murphy has any finishing capability, and Moura is not really looking tired, but they're making it seem like she's completely exhausted, which just I don't get it. I couldn't see it. They seemed like they were referencing like another fight of Moura's where she got super fatigued and lost, but that's not what was happening in this fight. Anyway, Moura wins round 2. She didn't really look that tired. Maybe you could say she looked a bit tired on the stool, came out off of the stool a little bit slow, and when the 3rd round started, she goes to like do the touch of hands and then the hug to like stall a bit. Murphy's ready to just like go. Murphy comes out super aggressive in the 3rd round, goes for a takedown, and then Moura ends up giving up her neck. Murphy goes for a guillotine, which looked super, super tight, but Moura gets out of it. DC was saying that Moura grabbed Murphy's shirt to get out of it, but anyway, Murphy still sort of had a hold of her neck, tries to go for like the John Jones guillotine up against the fence and landed a couple of knees, but they separate, and the commentators are still talking about how Moura is like super tired, which she looked like a little bit tired, but really not as much to deserve all of the fucking talking that the commentators were doing about it. And then like literally 30 seconds later, they're like, oh, Moura got her gas tank back. It's like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, why? I almost wish I didn't have the volume on, but whatever. Anyway, Murphy ends up winning round 3. Decision goes to Moura, but the funniest part is after the fight, after the Bruce Buffer makes the announcement. Bruce Buffer scares me, by the way. That guy's like always way too happy. I don't understand why he's so excited. But anyhow, Eduarda Moura goes up to Lauren Murphy and is like speaking in Portuguese, Brazilian to her. He's like, "Oh, blah, 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 blah." And Murphy just goes, "I don't know what the fuck you're saying," and walks away. I was like, what the fuck? That's hilarious. Anyway, moving on to Chidi and Njokuani versus Jake Matthews. Man, another early finish. These are the best prelims of the year. Seriously. Chidi and Njokuani comes out landing some like cracking, whip cracking kicks to the legs, and the body just looking like if you stay at range with this guy, he's gonna hurt you bad. They end up clinching up, and Jake Matthews just throws him to the ground with this like Thai foot sweep type clinch throw. And as Njokuani hits the ground, Jake Matthews like lands a good punch. Not a good punch, but like lands a punch, sort of keeps the hand there, and then grabs his back, takes that punch and turns it into a choke. He's on Njokuani's back with the choke in. Chidi stands up and starts walking over to the cage while Jake Matthews is like sinking it in even further. And then Chidi Njokuani tries to start shaking Jake Matthews off, but the choke's already in, and he just keeps holding it. He's got one of the hooks in and ends up having to tap. Another submission in literally under a minute. I hope that this continues for the rest of the card. Moving on to the main event of the prelims, Max Griffin versus Chris Curtis. This one was a fun fight. Chris Curtis looked smaller than usual at welterweight, but he used to actually fight at this weight, so he's coming back down. He still looked bigger than Max Griffin and, big for the division. The commentators were also saying ahead of the fight that Max Griffin apparently doesn't like Chris Curtis, just rubs him the wrong way or some shit like that, but they start the fight. Max Griffin is moving a lot, like just on his toes, boom, 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 bouncing, 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 but not throwing anything. Neither's Chris either. Eventually, Max Griffin throws a kick that kick Chris Curtis on his big black cock because it looked like it actually hit him in the stomach. But in the replay, I guess it like nicked his dick like on the way to his stomach. And yeah, Chris was unhappy about it. Still, neither guy threw much. Chris Curtis was then complaining about what looked like an eye poke. The ref tells him to keep fighting. It was actually a clash of heads. Max Griffin then takes advantage of Chris Curtis complaining and starts to actually throw some stuff. Things then heat up. Guys are both throwing. There's a good knee from Chris Curtis at the end, but also a back fist from Max Griffin to end the round. So round probably goes to Griffin. He threw like easily twice to three times as many strikes, but Curtis is landing the bigger shots. Round two starts and both guys are throwing heavy, but because Max Griffin is moving backwards the whole time and Chris is walking him down, there's just some moments where Chris crashes into Max into the cage and it does good damage. Max Griffin then lands a decent head kick, but he starts to rush and Chris Curtis drops him. It could have been an off-balance thing, but it did look like a knockdown. Chris has this really good jab uppercut combo that he keeps throwing. Another headbutt happens. Chris complains about another headbutt, and Max uses this opportunity again to try and take him down, but he can't get it. He holds Chris up against the fence for a second. Max on the stats has landed about like double the amount of punches over the fight, but much closer in this round, and Chris Curtis is landing way more damage. Curtis ends up landing another good knee, probably wins round two. Max Griffin is looking tired as fuck going back to his corner. He literally says in desperation, he's like, I need water now. I need water now. Round three starts. Max Griffin comes out with a good head kick. Chris Curtis blocks it though. Curtis lands a really good head-body combination, and the pressure is really starting to mount up and work for Chris. He has good head movement too, he has that same sort of Philly shell style as Sean Strickland, but he'll like land and then throw, then move his head, and when Max throws, he's just nowhere. There were a few moments where Chris Curtis could have been doing more, like he's got Max up against the cage, he's standing like, within striking distance away from him, but just sort of watching him, waiting for him to do something, so I guess that he can counter him, but ends up just giving Max time to catch his breath up. Curtis then lands some good body shots. He's like landing a lot of good body shots this round. Chris basically just keeps pressuring Max the whole time. Landing good shots, walking him down. Max eventually clinches up with Chris, but Chris throws him to the ground and laughs at him, which obviously looks good for the judges. Chris Curtis then lands some more good shots at the end, and Max goes for a high kick that misses to end the round. The bell goes, and Chris goes to like sort of fist bump or hug or something like that with Max, but Max just like walks away, having none of it. And it ends up going to split decision, but Chris Curtis takes it. So great prelims. Honestly, this was like the best prelims of the year. I know I've said it already, but like this was the most fun I've had watching the prelims fights all year. Moving on to Justin Tafa versus Tuco Tokkos. This was the first fight on the main card, and I mean, this was two cans, honestly. Tuco Tokkos had not won a fight in the UFC yet, but thankfully they put him up against Justin Tafa because Justin Tafa's wrestling might be the worst in the UFC at this point. I don't know how we're in 2025 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and you've got a guy like Justin Tafa who, yeah, has decent striking, lands big bombs. I guess he was like a top 5 heavyweight glory kickboxer, which is great, but literally has nothing going on the ground whatsoever. He was looking shredded. He's now down at light heavyweight from heavyweight, or, you know, as shredded as a big islander from Australia can really look. But Tokkos just immediately pressured Tafa with wrestling, gets him to the ground. Tafa gets back to his feet, but is still getting pressured, lands some elbows while Tokkos is trying to get him down. Tuco gets his back, has a choke in. Tafa's able to get him off his back. Tokkos ends up getting mount, doesn't really do much with it, but it looked super easy for him to get mount. And with a few seconds left in the round, Tafa gets on top and starts like raining down some serious ground and pound, but he only had like 5 seconds to do it, so nothing really happens. Round 1 obviously goes to Tuco Tokkos because like he just dominated in wrestling 100% of the time. As they're going into round 2, Tuco Tokkos looks sort of defeated, like he just looks like he'd given up on himself. And as they come out, they touch gloves, and then Tafa lands a fucking bomb, just like bang, smashes him, throws another one, lands another big bomb on Tokkos, and ends up dropping him, like just with a bit of pressure, throws a few more punches, but you know, obviously he's so bad at grappling, and he can see that Tokkos is like starting to just get a hold of him a little bit, that he ends up standing up and letting Tuco Tokkos stand up. As they're in striking distance, Tafa lands another big punch, and then Tokkos, just to try and close distance, like runs at him and tries this like flying kick thing in the air that obviously doesn't land, but he's able to get close enough to Tafa to take him down. And again, Tafa's wrestling is so bad, dude. It's so bad. Like, Tokkos gets mount and pretty much just looks like he can get it whenever he wants. He lands some good ground and pound from mount. He ends up getting an arm triangle choke, and Tafa just has like no idea how to defend it. You know, like usually guys will like try to answer the phone to create a little bit of space here. He's like holding his own hands. He literally doesn't know what to do to defend an arm triangle choke. And Tuco Tokkos ends up getting his first UFC win. It's just like the level of fighters on this card is a little bit... I don't know what you do with Justin Tafa after this. They're so bad. Like, he should honestly not be fighting in the UFC if you have such bad grappling. Moving on to Austen Lane versus Vitor Petrino. Vitor Petrino looks gigantic at heavyweight. Man, for a guy that's gone up in weight, he somehow hasn't gained any fat. If I had to guess, I'm gonna assume that this guy has taken some gear, man. Like, it's just, I don't believe that you can get that big without gaining any fat that quickly. Like, we got a new TRT Vitor on our hands, I think. Anyway, starting the fight, Austen Lane is using kicks to try and keep Vitor Petrino away from him, try and keep the distance. But after about a minute or so of that, Vitor Petrino caught on to what was happening, caught one of the kicks, took him down, grabbed mount in like seconds, and then was, you know, landing a bit, but he tried to sync up an arm triangle pretty quickly. But because Austen Lane isn't Justin Tafa, he actually knew how to defend the arm triangle by, you know, doing the telephone and just not letting Vitor Petrino move around to the side. And then eventually Vitor Petrino just abandons the arm triangle choke, lands some shots to the body, postures up, lands a bunch of ground and pound, and Austen Lane turns over, gives his back, and gives up a rear naked choke for a first round finish. So Vitor Petrino is an interesting guy at heavyweight. He is fucking jacked, man. I mean, He's still not going to be one of the biggest heavyweight guys because even though he's like big and strong and ripped, he came from light heavyweight, right? So he's not like he's a 265-pound guy. Derrick Lewis would make him look tiny, but seems like he's got some good grappling. I'm interested to see what he does as he moves up. Moving on to Nate Landwehr versus Morgan Charrière. This fight was a barn burner, man. Morgan Charrière starts the first round by just landing some vicious calf kicks that immediately create like a bunch of swelling and bruising on Nate Landwehr's front, like his lead leg calf. Charrière's landing good strikes at distance. Nate Landwehr starts to go like, oh fuck, I got to do something here, and starts to pressure. And he's actually having some success with his strikes when he's pressuring, because Morgan's on the back foot, and Nate's throwing like 3 or 4 punches at a time. A couple of them get through, but then Morgan Charrière takes Nate down. Nate uses a whizzer to get up, but his leg gets trapped and he gets taken down again. They end up scrambling. Nate ends up in a front headlock position to end the round, throwing some like knees to the ribs and just sort of hitting him. Nothing too big. Round ends. Nate's like limping back to his corner. That damage on his leg is rough. Moving into the second round, and this is where it starts to get crazy. Charrière is landing the cleaner strikes, but Landwehr is throwing way more volume. At a certain point, like sort of halfway through the round, maybe like a third of the way through the round, Charrière sort of lands like a slight groin shot, and the ref goes to pause the action, but Landwehr's like, I don't give a fuck, let's keep going, and the ref's like, yeah, 1 second, buddy. Landwehr's like hyping himself up to the crowd and, go like, fuck yeah, because he's the hometown guy. So he's actually from Tennessee. And the action starts again. Landwehr like runs in and literally just tries to take fucking Morgan Charrière's head clean off with one big punch, which Charrière sees coming from a mile away, and he ducks and he's like, fucking what was that? The rest of the round is just a crazy pace. Nate Landwehr's like throwing tons of punches, tons of forward volume movement, and Charrière's basically just trying to pick the spots where he can. But, there's openings presenting themselves, but he's also having to just avoid this onslaught of punches coming from this like crazy guy who's so hyped up. So Nate Landwehr wins round 2, and as they're going back to their corners, Nate's just like yelling at Charrière in the middle of the octagon, like it sounded like he was barking. I don't think he was barking. I think he was actually yelling, but it sort of sounded like he was doing the Jean Silva like thing. And anyway, round 3 starts basically with the same intensity that round 2 ended with, except this time Charrière comes in, lands some big shots quickly with his hands, and just pours the pressure on. He's like bang, bang, bang. And Charrière rocks Landwehr bad, sort of drops him, but the cage holds Nate up. And so as he comes back up, Charrière's just like throwing everything. A bunch of the shots aren't hitting, but probably half of them land. And then he lands another big shot that actually puts Landwehr down properly, and the ref ends it. After the fight gets like announced and Landwehr, not Landwehr, Charrière gets the win, he goes to like sort of console Landwehr, and Landwehr's basically like, fuck off, dude. I'm starting to be on the same page with something that Michael Chandler said back after he beat Dan Hooker, which is like, there's almost nothing more disrespectful than going up to another fighter after you've just beaten them and trying to console them. It happened in the Jake Matthews, Chidi and Njokuani fight earlier as well. Like, you could tell that Chidi did not want to talk to Jake after just getting choked out in a minute. And he's like got his hands up against the top of the cage. And Jake like literally comes under the hands of Chidi and like stands between him and the cage to like try and console him. And it's like, dude, fuck off. Like, dude, the guy doesn't want to talk to you. He's just lost. He's just lost a huge amount of his paycheck. He's lost a fight in his record. He's lost any momentum that he has getting towards the title. And he doesn't like you. He's just probably been training for the last few months with like hatred in his mind of you. Why does he want you to come and talk to him? I get it the other way around as well. Sportsmanship, of course, things like that. But I don't know, man. It's just funny to watch. Anyway. Moving on to Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia, and this one was pretty one-sided. Garcia came out pressuring in round 1. Seems like he had some nervous energy initially. I mean, it was a step up in competition, his first ranked opponent, but he was throwing a lot of punches and kicks, really mixing up the striking, and this is probably Calvin Kattar's biggest weakness is that he's only really willing to box in an MMA fight. It's like you're fighting a guy who's throwing punches, kicks, elbows, knees, spinning shit, and you're like, okay, I've got one, two, three, four, five, six. This is what I've got. This is what I'm gonna do, and it just doesn't work, right? Tons and tons of volume from Garcia. Kattar just seemed frozen. There was a big spinning back kick from Garcia towards the end of the first round. Did get blocked by Calvin, but you could just see that like it was big. Even though sometimes those big kicks like they get blocked, but it's still just rattling to get hit that hard. But with like 40 seconds left in the round, the strike differential was like 21 strikes to Garcia, 4 to Calvin Kattar. Round two was more of the same. Garcia with lots of pressure on. Kattar was trying harder, but not really being able to get much off. In between the rounds, Faraz Zahabi, who's Kattar's coach, GSP's old coach as well, was saying to throw the uppercut because Garcia ducks under a lot of the punches, but Kattar puts too much into his punches that he's off balance to throw the uppercut. Like he'll throw a big hook that Garcia will duck under, and Kattar's like overextended here, so he can't shift into the uppercut. Anyway, the first round ended with 26 strikes to 8. The second round was 29 to 8 with like 50 seconds left. Kattar basically just looked lost, and while Zahabi was, even though Zahabi's giving him advice in between round two and round three, while Zahabi's giving him advice, Kattar's sort of nodding, being like, yeah, okay, but you can tell he is not going to implement any of it. Zahabi's like, you can't keep walking backwards, you need to move forward. I feel like he could have maybe been a bit more forceful with Calvin Kattar, but anyway, Kattar starts off round three, throws a big high kick that narrowly misses, and then follows up with a spinning back fist that Garcia blocks. But after that, Zahabi told Kattar not to move back, and all he's basically done in round three is move backwards. Eventually, Garcia knocks Kattar down with a big right hand. Kattar looked badly hurt, but he stayed in it by shooting for a takedown and didn't get it, but it was able to keep him in the fight. But Garcia starts hunting him down. He's just stalking him, throwing everything that he can. Kattar's now trying hard. He realizes he needs to do something here. He's throwing big, but missing most of the shots that he's throwing. He did throw a decent spinning back elbow that caught Garcia, but and it was also interesting because Garcia does dip a lot. Like everything is too much. He's not bobbing. He's like fully dipping his head. So I do think that some of those higher level featherweights, like John Silver, for example, are going to really punish him if he continues to do that. Both guys were swinging hard until the final bell. I honestly have no idea how Calvin Kattar still has a chin after all the damage he's taken in a bunch of these fights. Like, I think back to that Max Holloway fight when he absorbed like 17 million fucking strikes over the course of 5 rounds. But Kattar still has a chin. He obviously lost 30-27, but it's always fun to watch Calvin Kattar fight because it's going to be a brawl. Moving on to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim. This one felt like a robbery, guys, honestly, and I picked Bonfim to win, but Wonderboy started with a lower stance than usual, seemed a lot more grounded, wasn't bouncing around as much. Bonfim, because of that, was basically just like spamming leg kicks. He also knew that Wonderboy is never going to really be taking him down. Bonfim throws a head kick, gets blocked. Wonderboy responds with a strong body kick. Wonderboy seemed less elusive than usual. I'm really assuming that it was because he was just more ready with his takedown defense, which did seem a lot better in this fight. We'll get to that. Wonderboy starting his, about halfway through the first round, started to do his patented bounce a bit more, but he let Bonfim get too close. Uncle Chael says you can never let them get too close. Bonfim got within touching distance of him, and there was sort of this split-second moment where usually Wonderboy would be like right out of there, but he was just stalled, and then Bonfim just shot for the takedown, got Wonderboy down onto one knee, sort of had his back with one hook in and tried to face crank him. Wonderboy eventually shook him off, landed like 1 or 2 shots of ground and pound, and then tries to grapple Bonfim himself, which was definitely a mistake because Bonfim was then able to get a hold of Wonderboy and push him up against the fence. They break. Bonfim landed a couple of decent counter shots. They both threw spinning kicks at the same time right at the end of the round. It's a tough round to score. I probably give that one to Bonfim. He did land a little bit better and had the control time. Going into round two, Wonderboy in this whole fight, no, in round one as well, but Wonderboy seemed to have a more offensively aggressive style. He's usually sort of doing his bouncing, sitting on the back foot, and just waiting to counter and hit you. But this time, I think he understands that with these grapplers, you got to put them on the back foot so that they don't just continue pushing the pressure all the time. Bonfim tried a really long takedown shot, grabbed an ankle, not able to get it, holds Wonderboy against the fence, tries to do like a spinning back elbow off of the break, but misses and just sort of looked a bit silly. Wonderboy blitzed, and Bonfim landed a good counter shot, which didn't deter Wonderboy because like 2 seconds later he blitzes again and lands, just not super strong. Big spinning kick from Wonderboy that Bonfim ducks under and tries to shoot for a takedown, but Wonderboy's able to sprawl. And then Bonfim pushes Wonderboy against the fence, has his back with one hook in a standing position. He basically got some control time, but no damage. After that, there was this great head kick by Wonderboy. A good straight right by Bonfim shortly after, and then this crazy thing happens where Wonderboy throws a leg kick. Bonfim checks it. Really good check. And I guess I'll get back to the scoring in a second, but the kick gets checked. Wonderboy falls over because of the check being like hurting him badly. His shin is now split open really bad, like bleeding everywhere immediately. He gets back up and uses that leg to throw another massive head kick that really rocks Bonfim. Like pretty much drops him, and Bonfim then shoots for a takedown and almost gets his head taken off by another head kick that just like literally just goes over the top of his head. That one was a close round as well, but I think it definitely goes to Wonderboy because of the massive head kick that came. With that being said, during the middle of the rounds, there's so much blood coming out of Wonderboy's leg. It's crazy. But they start round three. Wonderboy starts with a good body kick, again with that same leg. Bonfim dives on an ankle, doesn't get the takedown, has Wonderboy against the fence and tries to like lift him with the high crotch. They break. Wonderboy looks down at his brutally cut shin, but then throws it to the body, throws it to the head. Bonfim then tries for another takedown, but Wonderboy does a great job of stuffing it. Bonfim then has Wonderboy against the fence, but Wonderboy trips him. Wonderboy has his back against the fence and is actually able to trip Bonfim into the ground. Bonfim still has a hold of him, so he keeps Thompson against the fence. Wonderboy switches position, breaks, throws an elbow on the break that lands. He then throws a spinning back kick that slightly misses. Wonderboy lands another big head kick, like fucking Bonfim's going for a takedown, and Wonderboy just bang kicks him straight in the head as he's coming in for the takedown. Bonfim then shoots another takedown, does actually get him back down. He shot the takedown, gets him down. Wonderboy gets up. Bonfim gets him back down. Wonderboy gets back up. Bonfim is then just like holding him around the midsection and just holding him up against the fence. They switch positions on the fence a couple of times, but Bonfim basically just has more control time against the fence. I personally give that round to Wonderboy, especially if we're going off of damage. I know they haven't implemented the new rules exactly in terms of how the damage scoring works, or at least I don't think that they have, but based on the way that the rules are meant to be, Wonderboy won that third round for sure. It goes to a split decision. They give it to Bonfim. The crowd's booing. It honestly felt like a robbery. I don't really get it. I do get it. It's just another one of those fights where it's like close enough where control time mattered more in the judge's eyes than damage, but that's not how they're meant to score the fights. And I picked Bonfim, but it is what it is. Like Wonderboy won that fight. Moving on to the main event, Derrick Lewis versus Tallison Teixeira. This was a quick one. Man, Derrick Lewis seemed pissed, more so than usual. I know that he likes to have that animosity with the guys that he's fighting, but he was like licking his lips, looking dead at Tallison Teixeira. And when they went up and were meant to like touch gloves, Tallison Teixeira was like holding his glove out, and Derrick Lewis basically just waited till the very last second and like smacked it. And then right before they were about to fight, Tallison like held his hand up again to go like, "Oh, are we gonna touch gloves?" And you couldn't see Derrick Lewis based on the cameras, but you could see that Derrick must have been like, "No, fuck you," because he was like, "Oh, okay then." So then they get in there, and Tallison Teixeira is tall as fuck. Like he's 6'7", and he's every inch of it. He looked a lot bigger than Derrick Lewis, but he lands this left hook to the face that I guess sort of caught Derrick Lewis in the eye. It was like maybe like a knuckle or something like that. But also I've seen Derrick Lewis play possum a bunch of times, so I don't really trust that when he actually is like that, that it's what's actually going on, because he goes to hold his eye and he's like, and then Tallison Teixeira comes up close and Derrick just swings at him straight right, lands clean. They then go to like trade left hooks with each other, but Derrick lands right on the chin of Tallison Teixeira, knocks Tallison down. Derrick pounces on him real quick and just starts following up with a bunch of ground and pound really quickly. He's all over him. You can tell like Talonson's like, "What the hell? What's going on? I need to get up." And he starts like full on fence grabbing to get himself up, like literally just sticking his hands into the fence and trying to climb up the fence. And then the ref stops it. Now, I almost felt like when I first watched it, that seemed like maybe it could have been an early stoppage, or maybe not when I first watched it. When I first watched the replay and Tallison Teixeira is like immediately protesting, I was like, "Oh, is that an early stoppage?" But at the end of the day, when you have to crawl your way up the fence by grabbing the fence illegally, you shouldn't be granted that position now, right? So if you weren't going to be able to get up there without having to do that, then you were just going to stay underneath Derrick Lewis continuously getting punched, which basically means you lost the fight, unless you want to somehow be able to give that position back up. So I actually think it was a really good stoppage by the referee when all said and done. Again, I actually picked against Derrick Lewis. Annoyingly, right ahead of the fight, I messaged my friend. I was like, "Man, I think I picked wrong here. I think that Tallison Teixeira is just not." After listening to MMA Guru's video on this the other day, I was like, "Yeah, actually, who has he fought? He beat Justin Tafa." And after watching what Justin Tafa did earlier in the event, I was like, "Oh, so he beat nobody. This is insane. Why the hell is he a 3-1 favorite against Derrick Lewis?" I think I had just seen Derrick Lewis lose too many times recently, but it was a silly mistake on my end to bet against the Black Beast. He had the best celebration afterwards. I mean, obviously his classic like take his pants off thing. I saw someone on Twitter or X or whatever we call it now being like, Derrick Lewis is like the guy or the kid who, had a funny joke one time and never lets it go. And it's sort of true, but at the same time, it's fucking hilarious. Let him do his thing. He takes his pants off. He goes over to Teixeira's corner, pisses on the cage. He, scoops up the dirt to like pretend like he's a dog. He did the whole Israel Adesanya 3 arrows thing. I don't really understand the reference there. He's talking to Dana outside, and then Dana gives him a phone, and while he's getting his hand raised, he's on the phone talking to Trump and just basically getting like kind words from Trump. Then he's, obviously in his Octagon interview, his wife is standing right next to him, and he's like, Daniel Cormier is like, "So what's next for you?" He's like, "What's next for me? I'm going to take my wife's next for me. I'm going to ground and pound her." Yeah, ground and pound her hard. And Derrick, DC is like laughing and like putting his head into Derrick Lewis's shoulder. And his wife's just there. I mean, she probably hears this type of shit all the time. I bet that Derrick Lewis is a fucking animal. But it's just funny, man. He's always fun to watch. This was seriously one of the best cards that I've seen in a while. I know that it feels like I've been saying that a lot. UFC 314 was really good. The last UFC pay-per-view was quite good. But this was great. I know that there were a lot of mismatches on the cards, but some underdogs won. You know, it felt like everyone was going to get fed to the other guy. There was a robbery with Wonderboy. I really felt like he, as the underdog, should have won that fight as well. Like the prelims were just fucking amazing. There were so many finishes on this card. Cards like this, I mean, to be fair, I was probably a lot of us were like shitting on this card prior to it actually happening. But when it happened, it turned out to be a lot of fun. So I had a great time tonight watching the fights. If you didn't get to watch it, I hope that this recap was a lot of fun. If you liked it, like it. If you have anything that you wanted to say, please leave it in the comments. If you want to see more of these videos or you like any of the other stuff on my channel, make sure to subscribe. I'm really trying to build this channel up. I want to be my goal, honestly, is to be able to stop doing sales for work, which is what I do as a job, and be able to work full time in the MMA universe somehow. However that is. And I feel like the only real path that I have to doing that is by building a YouTube channel. And I know that I've started late. You know, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm 31 now. When I was 14, 15, I used to be in the back of my school classes, like literally looking up every single fight, every fighter. I knew all their records. I knew crazy shit like Lyoto Machida once fought BJ Penn on like a regional type of scene, which is crazy because, you know, Lyoto Machida was a light heavyweight, BJ Penn was a lightweight. I knew every single fight card. And, you know, I don't know why I delayed so much on doing something like this, but even though, you know, I have friends of mine that ask me silly questions of like, oh, when are you going to earn money from this? I'm like, man, I don't care. If I have so much fun making these videos, if this is just what I keep doing over and over and over again for a while and I make nothing from it, I don't fucking mind. I'm having a lot of fun and I hope that these videos that I bring are entertaining for you as well. Anyway, see you guys.